Hey guys, it's Ryan here with Hobbies Man. Once again, and today we're going to be doing another manga review. We're going to be looking at Witches' War, or War of the Greedy Witches, or The Great War Between Witches, or Maho Tensei, or what's the other title for it? Walpurgis, I think is another term for it. And this is published by a Spanish company called Planeta Manga. Although I bought this from Mexico because Planeta actually imports stuff into Mexico, rearranges the pricing for a Mexican market, and then distributes through different, bookstores. However, Yen Press recently announced that they were going to be releasing this series in English, right? So I think it's spring 2025. Yen Press will be releasing Greedy Witches, or War of the Greedy Witches, or Witches' War, or whatever you want to call it, here in English. So you don't have to wait too long. You can also read it online. The Japanese publisher actually machine translates it and puts it up online for you to read. I don't necessarily like the UI for that system, which is why I bought this instead. But it is accessible and it's free. There's also some chapters on Comic Key. Those are not free, but they're also not that difficult to access, so you can get them. But I really recommend just waiting for Yen Press to release the first volume of it. This is written by Homura Kawamoto, who is a woman, I think. Drawn by Makoto Shiozuka, who is a man, I think. And like I said, this is published by Planeta. The demographic here is seinen. And if I remember correctly, this is in the same magazine as Record of Ragnarok, which will tell you a lot about what this is, because this is just a female version of Record of Ragnarok, in the sense that the system of the story is the same. The details behind why the story happens are a little bit different. But the concept is basically exactly the same, right? And the genres here are fantasy, deathmatch, and tournament, right? If you want to call it that. It's just an action fighting manga that has this fantasy element to it, added in to make the fights more interesting, because that's what's cool now. It does not have an adaptation, although the way that it's going, it probably will be announced quite soon, which is why Yen Press is probably going to release it in the spring of 2025. And the premise is pretty simple. There is an evil goddess, or some sort of ancient demonic goddess. Her name is Agrat. She is from the Jewish pantheon, and she has called forth the Walpurgis. And the Walpurgis is the battle of witches, and she has called forth 32 women from history who are to embody these witches, right? And so each of them will be given a power to coincide with their greed, with their reason for existence, and they will be forced to fight in a death match, and only one of them will survive, and that one will have her wishes granted to her, right? And that's basically all there is to it. It's exactly the same as Record of Ragnarok, even though the mechanics of how the tournament happens are slightly different. And the only major difference here is that technically we have a main character, and that would be Joan of Arc. She is the first thing that we're introduced to. She has the color page in the front, and that's her in black and white. And we basically learn that, the Walpurgis is going to happen. 32 women have been gathered in this chart, which includes people like Mona Lisa and Yang Gufei and Zenobia and Agatha Christie and Florence Nightingale and Marie Antoinette and Cleopatra and Mata Hari and all of these different great women from history. And the 32nd witch to be gathered for this will be Joan of Arc. That says Juana de Arco, which is Joanne of the Ark in Spanish. And we get to see kind of her youth, how she becomes someone powerful and important to history, and how she dies. When she dies, we take her out of time. She is grabbed by Lilim and Lilith, and Lilu, who are all basically different versions of the same character from Abrahamic mythology. And she is told that she is the 32nd witch to be chosen for this challenge. Does she accept? What is her greed? And it turns out that she doesn't have a desire. She doesn't have greed yet, but she wishes to have one. And so her greed is, or her desire is to have desire, because her life is horrible and she didn't decide anything in her life. She just followed the path of God or whatever. And so the contract is accepted. She is placed on this magical chessboard, and the Walpurgis is explained to her by Agrat Bat Malat, who is the goddess or the queen of demons. Then the power system is explained. Basically, every witch has a desire. This desire, alongside the magic that Agrat has given them, thanks to them agreeing to this fight, allows them to have a power and then something else, right? And we get to demonstrate this by having Marie Antoinette, who is a classic lolly type character because, of course, show off her power. And then the tournament is set up. We get to see who's going to fight who. And it turns out that Elizabeth Bathory is the first player, and she is going to fight Tomoe Gozen. Tomoe Gozen is a mythological female character from Japanese history. Well, she's a historical person, but she's mythologized the same way like George Washington is for us Americans, right? Here is the tournament system. So the first battle is Isabel Bathory versus Tomoe Gozen, then Joan of Arc versus Wu Zetan, or Wu Zetian. I don't know how to say that name, but I think it's a Chinese lady. I think she's like a queen or something. And so the battle starts. And Elizabeth Bathory is basically female Dracula, or kind of like Carmilla. She has basically the same backstory as Vlad the Impaler, except she's from Hungary instead of, Wallachia. But in that point in history when she existed, I think it was basically the same thing anyway. So yeah, she's just female Dracula. That's basically all there is to it. Her desire is torture, and her dream is immortality. That's what she wants when she wins. She is to face Tomoe Gozen, who has supernatural strength gifted to her by fate. She is the sister of the guy that started the shogunate system, or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And her desire is justice, and basically she will wish for peace or something if she wins. And so basically, even though they're called witches, and even though they have to be greedy, even though they have to have desire, they're not all evil. Only some of them are, right? And they start fighting, and it's really unsure who's going to win, although I think I know who's going to win based on who got backstory first. I'll say that. And so it's not as easy, it's not as nebulous as Record of Ragnarok, right? It's a little bit more telegraphed here, but it is still quite enjoyable. And I think that if you like Record of Ragnarok, but you're sad that there are no major important female characters, either from the god side or the human side, fighting, I think that this is the solution for you. This is exactly what you needed, what you wanted, if you wanted to see Record of Ragnarok, but with female characters. Because it's basically exactly the same, right? The only difference is that these characters don't need Voland. They don't have a Valkyrie attached to them. They just have magic because Agrat gave it to them, right? So that's basically the only major difference. Everything else is pretty similar. Humans and characters show up to cheer for them, and you get to see their commentary and stuff exactly the same as Record of Ragnarok, just with female characters instead. So 10 out of 10. I would watch the anime if it was out right now. I'm going to continue to buy this. However, it's going to be quite difficult for me to get it because I don't know when I'm going to go to Mexico next. I might not go to Mexico for a few years, right? But I will probably have one of my family members come up to, the border at some point before the end of the year. So if that happens and the second book is out by then, I will get them to buy it for me and bring it to me, right? Which is basically how I got that in the first place a month ago, right? So, yeah, that's all there is to say. It was a bit rambly, and I think I repeated myself a few times, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below to me your thought. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.